Well, hello, everyone. We're coming back in for our wonderful COP orientation. We got a good number of people here, so very excited to begin this. First of all, a question. Are the little boxes on the side of your faces blocking the presentation at all? Okay, perfect. Then we'll get started. Welcome to COP orientation, everybody. This is where we're going to learn about how to function in the Council of Presidents, what parliamentary procedure looks like, Robert's Rules of Order, and we're going to go through a couple of practice motions and things. So very excited for this. If you have been to COP orientation before, you'll notice we extended it a little bit this year. It's an hour instead of like 20 or 30 minutes. And that's so that we can have some more time to go through what it means to be a chapter president, as well as the agenda for COP itself. So we're hoping that this is a really comprehensive orientation and helps you to feel very prepared for what we're going to do this weekend, which is very important work. So we'll go ahead and begin. And this is a super casual thing. So if you have questions or concerns at any point, you can send it in the chat or just unmute and say, stop, I have something to say, and that is totally fine. And so, to begin, welcome to the Council of Presidents. COP is the largest and most important governing body of the AIS. So you may think the most important body is the BOD. That's not true. The Council of Presidents is what makes the real decisions, the things that really move our organization forward, and that's all of you. As a student leader, chapter president specifically, or a delegate appointed by your chapter leader, it's your privilege and duty to represent your chapter to the Council of Presidents, and through the Council of Presidents, we are represented to all of the architectural profession in the world through the AIS. So every delegate has the right to participate in discussion, and that includes delegates of chapters that are not in good standing. I'm sure that you are fairly familiar with the rules of good standing at this point, but if you're not in good standing, you cannot vote in motions, but you are allowed to participate in discussion because we want to hear what you have to say. So moving on from there, just some things from the bylaws about being a chapter president. So I won't read these verbatim because, bylaws can be a little dry sometimes. But a general description is that you are the student contact for your chapter as the chapter president. You represent your chapter to us and through us to the world. Distribution of literature, whatever literature is distributed to you through the AIS, you are responsible for posting or distributing that information to the students at your school and the students at your chapter. And lastly, communication. You are required to maintain current contact information with the leadership, for the leadership of your school with the AIS National Office, and remain in constant communication with us over the course of the year. So really happy to find that bylaw, because sometimes chapter presidents fall behind a little bit on communication, but don't we all? So keep that in mind throughout the year, that we really, really want to get in touch with you. And it's your duty to represent the students at your school. So that's an exciting job to have. So this is a cute little graphic made by GovCom this year, the governance committee, just explaining a little bit about who is the board of directors, how do they relate to the Council of Presidents and local boards of directors. So the national board is made up of the vice president, that's Shannon DeFranza for this year, the past president, our lovely Ann Conti, and myself, the president, and then our quad directors for the Midwest, Northeast, South, and West quads. We also have our international ambassadors who are non-voting members of the board, but represent very important parts of our organization. Then we have the Council of Presidents, which is all of you. So we relate to you, and I, as the president of the board, sit as chair on the Council of Presidents. And then you, of course, govern your local board of directors at your school. So I hope this graphic organizes it in your mind a little bit, but that's generally how our organization works. Who, where, when is the COP? So I just wanted to throw this out there really quickly because don't want to lose that institutional knowledge, but also want you to see how just important the COP is. The Council of Presidents is made up of presidents of all chapters of the AIS from all around the world. So if you don't know, the AIS is an international organization, and we have chapters everywhere. We just opened one in India fairly recently, so that's really exciting. The Grassroots Council of Presidents typically meets in the AI boardroom in the building that I'm in right now in Washington, D.C. So that is a picture of the real room that we meet in. I think it's really cool, and wish that we could all be there together in person, and we will again someday, but that is the kind of level of governance we're talking about here. And we will have 2 Council of Presidents meetings this year, this one, and then at Forum Denver, which will be virtual again, but will still be very important in making decisions for our organization and for your chapters and for everybody in the AIAS. So a little bit about virtual COP itself, because we're still all kind of finding out how to do these meetings. Specifically, this is only the third virtual COP we'll ever have. So we're going to go over these rules, which are also outlined in the agenda. Ensure that you're somewhere with no distractions and good Wi-Fi. We don't want you to cut out in the middle of saying something. Obviously, not everybody has access to fantastic Wi-Fi, but just try to do your best and be in some room, hopefully, where people aren't running around and there's like dogs barking and all that kind of stuff. Because again, we are doing very important work and we don't have a lot of time to do it. Please keep your camera on at all times so we can see who's speaking and have a better idea of the majority in votes. I know that we get into the habit of kind of this passive participation. Not having our cameras on is really nice sometimes, but in COP, it's really important to keep your camera on if possible. Always keep yourself muted unless recognized to speak. We'll talk about this a little more, but you have to be recognized by myself as the chair to speak, so we don't interrupt each other and waste time doing all that stuff. We're using the chat to vote and be recognized to speak or agree with someone by sending +1. So once we ask for votes, you'll use the chat to type in your vote, and we'll talk about that a little more. Type in the chat if you want to be recognized to speak, or if you want to agree with someone. You don't need to necessarily unmute and say, yes, I agree with you because blah, blah, blah. If you're just saying the same thing they said, send +1 in the chat and we will record it in the minutes for posterity. And please do not send comments or have conversations in the chat during COP. You can totally do that in Slack or somewhere else. Just don't let it distract from the meeting. But for the channel, the chat in Zoom itself, we're just using that for official purposes. We will take a record of the chat and put it in the minutes. So keep that clean. So a little more about virtual COP. Please take a minute. I think that it will remain, but make sure of this tomorrow, especially when we start at 11, to take a minute to change your name on Zoom to your chapter's name and then your name. So for example, if Ashley Ash were the chapter president at Iowa State, she would make her Zoom name Iowa State University -Ashley Ash. And that's a little screenshot of where you can rename yourself. That's not because we want to eliminate your individualism. We just need to know what chapter is voting on what. But we also would like to know your name. So keep that in there, but make sure you have your chapter name first. So going into the order of business, how we do business meetings, which is what the COP is. First of all, we will have our call to order. The president, that's me, who serves as the chair of the COP, will call the meeting to order. I was just gifted this lovely little gavel last night, so I will bang, call the meeting to order, and we'll begin, and we'll all be very happy and excited. Roll call will start. Roll call is not quite as fun as roll call for the conference, but it's still super fun in my opinion. So Miss DeFranza, not Mrs., our vice president, will call roll to ensure we have quorum, which is 2/3 of the chapter in good standing. And if we do not have quorum, then we can't hold the meeting, but I'm not worried about it. I'm sure we'll get it. But we do need to call roll just to ensure that we have that. And then we'll have the approval of minutes. Minutes from the Forum COP meeting must be approved and are available for your reference in the agenda. If you have not received the agenda, please email me ASAP at president@ais.org. I will send out another email with the agenda and instructions tonight, just because we've had some issues with emails bouncing back and stuff, but just make sure that you have that before tomorrow morning. And so we'll need to approve those minutes before we move on to reports. Reports from the board of directors are attached in the agenda. It's a very, very long document that I emailed to you, and I apologize, but they all are very important things. So after the agenda is the part called the appendix, and that contains all of the reports from the board of directors as well as our committees. And you will hear presentations from them. You will not hear presentations from the board on their reports, so make sure that you read those. And then we will have, all of our different items and things that are in the agenda, and toward the end, we'll have new business. So these agenda items have been brought to the COP through resolution, will be voted on Sunday. If we have time for other new business, I will open that up. And so please, if you have items that you want to bring forward for new business in terms of motions, amendments, those kind of actionable items, email me with those tonight, and we can see if we can squeeze them into the agenda. But otherwise, we will move on into town hall, which is open discussion. So any items that have been brought forward, if you want items to discuss in town hall, please email those to me at president@ais.org by midnight tonight, so that we can have a schedule for that and have a structured discussion. Town hall is not for motion making. So if somebody tries to make a motion move to do something, we won't be able to do it in town hall because it's just for discussion. So if there's any sort of student issue or organizational issue you just want the COP to talk about, definitely email that to me and we will be excited to discuss it with you. And then we will adjourn. And that is a full account of the order of business. So before I move on, are there any questions or confusion about any of those items or how they're structured? I'm not super watching the chat, so if there's something important happening in there. Oh, Jesse, do you have a question?
I have a question. Can you go over again when you're typing to vote in the chat what exactly you type?
We will go over that. Yes, I will go over that very soon, but thank you for that question. And Alex, you have a question about time zones. Is that what your question's about?
Yes, can you just clarify midnight by what time zone you would like those in by?
Yes, I will go ahead and say midnight in the West Quad because I will be asleep by then. It won't matter, but I will check the email early tomorrow morning. So make sure you get them in by midnight in whatever time zone you're in. That's what we'll go with. Please write your full university name unless it's just ridiculously long and won't fit on your Zoom square, in which case well-known abbreviations are acceptable, but we would prefer your full university name. Carolina, do you have a question? Carolina.
Yes. If my chapter isn't in good standing, can I still discuss, but I just don't vote?
Exactly, yes. You are totally welcome to participate in discussion because, again, we want to know what your chapter has to say, but you just won't be allowed to vote.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Look at that perfect naming from Quinn. Quinn, do you have a question?
Yeah, so if I am a delegate or a proxy from another university, do I need to put both names on my card, or is that covered elsewhere?
That's a wonderful question, and I will actually turn that to our parliamentarian. Do we need to have both names on the Zoom chat?
I would say no, as long as our vice president has a record of which chapters are voting as a proxy for another chapter. You just have to make sure when you do cast your vote, you write out the votes for both chapters.
Thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you.
Any other questions before we move on?
While we're just a little bit on the topic, I have currently 2 proxies and I know who you are. So if anybody else does need a proxy, now is the time. Please don't wait another second.
Yes, if you want a proxy or if you want a proxy for someone else, email vicepresident@ais.org right now. That would be a great time to do that. But with that, we will keep moving forward. I will get this chat out of my way. So talking a bit about parliamentary procedure, and I already referenced her, but our parliamentarian is the immediate past president of the AIS, which is the lovely Erin Conti, and she serves as the ultimate authority in interpreting the bylaws and the rules of the board. So Ms. Conti, would you like to introduce yourself, even though you already spoke?
Yes, I'll introduce myself now that you've introduced me. But hi, everyone. I'm Erin. I am currently your president of the AIS for another few hours. But yes, as past president, I serve as parliamentarian to the board, and I'm here to answer any questions regarding process or anything relating to Robert's rules. So feel free to shoot me a message if you need, and I'll just keep track during the meetings.
Wonderful. And just so you know, before I did have the Uncle Sam picture of Erin here, and I changed it because I'm nice, and we already saw it before. So let's talk about speaking during the meeting, which was a question that we had. As I said before, you must be recognized by the chair in order to speak. That's not just because I'm power hungry, it's because of parliamentary procedure and making sure that everything's going smoothly and we're being organized. So in order to be recognized to speak during a discussion, you will just need to type your chapter name and comment or question in the Zoom chat. And now that I go through this again, you don't necessarily need to put your chapter name for this part because I'll be able to read it. But go ahead and send comment if you have a comment, question if you have a question, which y'all have been doing amazing at already in the Zoom chat. So for example, if you are Ryerson and you have a comment, it will say Ryerson University, and then you just type comment. And so again, you must be recognized by the chair, which is why there's a chair. and he recognizes you. He knows who you are. But I will say the chair recognizes the delegate from Ryerson University, and then you're free to speak. On the subject of voting, so during voting, you'll need to unmute when asked to say aye if you are in favor of the motion, nay if you are opposed, and abstain if you do not wish to vote. So as I said, you will need to send your vote in the chat. So you'll need to type aye, nay, abstain, but you'll also want to unmute and say it, which I know that's two things to do, and I apologize for that, but we want to be as clear as possible in the minutes, but also move as quickly as possible through the meeting and through votes. So if we have any, I won't be able to tell super well how many people have said aye and how many people have said nay, but we will have it for posterity in the chat if we come to a point where we need that. So for example, sending in the Zoom chat, Montana State University, aye, would be very helpful. And then also the delegate from Montana State would unmute and say aye when asked. And we will go through a practice motion. So if this is confusing, I'm sorry, but we will go through it in a moment. We always suggest that you have your chapter name typed and ready in the chat just so you can type I after it. So again, we can have that in the record of the Zoom chat that we're going to save. So the order of a motion is made by the chair or delegate. So for instance, if the University of Florida was making a motion in new business, particularly is where this would happen. They would say the University of Florida moves to blank. So you won't say I move because you're moving on behalf of your chapter. So the University of Florida moves to do whatever you would like to do. The chair will ask for a second. That's me. So I will say, is there a second? And verbally recognize the delegate who seconds for the minutes. So for instance, if Florida International were to second the motion, I would say the chair recognizes the delegate from Florida International University. And if there is no second, then the motion just doesn't move on because if there's only one person who is interested in this motion, it's not worth the time of the council. And then the chair will ask if there's any discussion on the motion. So first of all, for resolutions and things like that, I will ask for background from the motion maker. And then after that, I will open it to discussion. So that's, you're free to make comments and questions to the motion maker, but you must be recognized to speak. And so when the discussion is over and we've all hopefully made our decisions, I will say, I will call the question or move to a vote. And then that's when you will vote. You will unmute to say aye, nay, or to abstain. And then we applaud because a good thing happened, even if it passes or even if it fails, whether the motion passes or fails, we applaud because we did a good job. And so talking about amendments, this gets a little more complicated based on Robert's rules, but I do have the book right here, so no worries, we'll get through it together. But just verbally explaining amendments, and then I'll graphically explain it a little bit. If you feel that an amendment should be made to any motion or a change should be made to any motion, it is your right as a delegate to make it. While you will speak to discuss and explain your amendment, we ask that you will also type out the motion with your edits and DM it to VP DeFranza for clarity and for the minutes. So by that, I just mean you can talk through your amendment if you'd like to for a moment, but then we ask that you type out the new motion with your amendment and send it to Vice President DeFranza so she can just copy and paste it into the minutes instead of trying to interpret what you're saying while you're saying it. If an amendment is made, we will first vote on it, the amendment itself. It will need a second and a majority vote of aye. And then we will move back to the main motion, which will change or remain the same depending on the success of the amendment. So if the amendment passes, we will now be voting on the motion with the amendment. And if it fails, then we will just go back to voting on the main motion. So I know that that's confusing because I confuse myself when I talk about it. So I made this little graphic for you. So we have the main motion, for instance. I'm moving that we all carry handbags from now on when at AIS conferences. And someone says, no, that's dumb. This needs to be changed during discussion. You can totally say that and kind of go through your thoughts in your head. But we want to carry backpacks instead of handbags. And so that is the amendment. I move to amend the motion to read, AIS members will carry backpacks. So we have stricken handbags and replaced it with backpacks, which is just a terrible motion. So that's what I came up with. And then we will move to vote on that amendment itself. So if the amendment passes, then we will go back to vote on the main motion. So we just voted here to change handbags to backpacks. And once that passes, we will go to vote on whether we actually require this at conferences. If we do not pass the amendment, then the amendment fails. We forget about it. We go back to the main motion, which is AIS members should carry handbags at conferences. So I hope that that helped a little. Please take a picture of this if it will help in your head. I'll leave it up for a moment. But if you ever have any more questions about this, feel free to DM me or ask me on Slack or any of that stuff. And you can ask questions in COP. We will be forgiving of that. So now we're going to practice. This is the interactive part of this. So this is included in the agenda. If you looked at the agenda, the part where we're doing orientation gives some background, but based on some recent comments made on Instagram posts, and especially due to the interest of the Midwest Quad Director in grass conferences, the chair moves to change the name of the organization to the American Institute of Grass Students, or the AIGS. So can I get a second on this motion?
Seconded.
And this is my own fault, but I did not see who said the second. And so it was seconded by the University of Cats. Okay, I think first we had RWU. Thank you, Nathan. So the delegate, or the chair, recognized the delegate from RWU for a second. And so now I will open the floor to discussion. Is there any discussion on this motion? I've already given a bit of background, so I'll leave it at that. But would anyone like to discuss this? Seeing and hearing none. The question is on the motion to change the name of the organization to the American Institute of Grass Students. Now we're going to vote. Prepare yourselves. All in favor, please unmute and say aye, and also send aye in the chat.
Point of order / question for our parliamentarian. I see in the chat somebody wrote that they have a University of Cats comment. Is that allowed once we have called the question?
Can you repeat that? Did you say it was a comment on the motion or on the University of Cats as a university?
It is a comment from the University of Cats. On the motion.
If the chair has already closed the period for discussion, then the vote will happen. And I will say, while I'm looking, if you are not voting in favor, you do have to wait until the chair asks for you to vote nay if you are not in favor. So please do not cast your vote for nay until it is asked for.
Yes, I was seeing that too. So again, I've only asked for ayes, which we're getting a good number of ayes. I didn't hear many people unmute to say aye, but that's okay. That's why we're practicing. And so once I give a minute for some more ayes. All right, all opposed, please unmute and say nay, and type nay in the chat.
Nay.
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 University of Oregon, nay.
The University of Oregon says nay. All right, it's a pretty split decision here. And so in this case, we would have to count the votes through the chat because it's so split. But first of all, are there any abstentions? Please unmute and say abstain, and also type abstain in the chat. All right, seeing none, I'll just interpret this how I want to, because this isn't real right now. This isn't a real power I have, but I've decided that the nays have it, and we are not the American Institute of Grass Students. And that's the gavel, and we applaud. Yay! It failed. So close, Bailey. Sorry about you. And so that was a first practice motion. So thank you all for indulging in that. And we will move to another motion now that I would like a delegate to give. So consider it for a moment while I change the slide. Is there a second? Forgot that I wrote all this down, but we did it right, so no worries. So discussion is closed, and we voted. And so now, a motion from one of you. Please, if you have a motion you would like to give as an example, let me know in the chat. Or just unmute. The University of Cats has a motion. Please go ahead, the delegate from the University of Cats.
The University of Cats would like to propose that cats become the official mascot of the AIAS.
Is there a second? The chair recognizes the delegate from the University of California, Los Angeles. So now I will open it to background from the motion maker, the delegate from the University of Cats. Please explain yourself.
So here at the University of Cats, we believe that cats are a really incredible animal in the animal kingdom. As a feline, they definitely prioritize their sleep, which is something we as architecture students also need to do. They're really just great creatures in general. We think that they really embody the AIAS as a whole.
Thank you for that. So let's just bring up the next part of this slide. That motion is Garbo, so I think somebody should amend it, which I can't say in a real motion, but this is just for practice. So please, someone request or make an amendment. The chair recognizes the delegate from UTSA. Haley, would you like to unmute and make your amendment?
Yeah, but you have to ignore my voice again. Cats are wonderful individuals, and while they are very beautiful and graceful, and yes, they do prioritize sleep, pit bulls are a sense of power and loving, and I think that they would just be cuter on a sticker.
Yes, that is appreciated. To be clear, first of all, you would make the amendment. So you would say, I move to amend the motion to strike cats and replace it with pit bulls. And then I would ask for a second. So let's pretend that that happened. Is there a second on the amendment? Second from the University of Grass. Thank you. And so now we're going to open it up to discussion on the amendment. Is there any discussion to change cats to pit bulls? Seeing, a comment from the delegate at NYT Long Island.
I'm allowed to talk now?
Yes.
Okay. I think pit bulls are a good representation of architects, and they kind of stand for the same things that we stand for, because they're misunderstood and often misinterpreted and seen as a scapegoat for other things. And I think that advocating for pit bulls is a good route for us to take in the same way we advocate for other things.
Thank you very much. Is there any more discussion on the amendment? Getting some plus ones, thank you very much. Seeing and hearing no other comments or questions, the question is on the amendment to strike cats and change it to pit bulls. And I don't have the exact text of the motion, but we're going to say, I forgot the exact wording of the motion also. But the question was on the motion to strike cats and make it pit bulls. So all those in favor, please say aye. Unmute and say aye, as well as typing in the chat.
Aye.
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 Beautiful. And we will have to pause for a moment to let all the ayes come in, so don't mind the awkward silences. Great. All those opposed, please say nay.
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 Wonderful. And are there any abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain.
I see an abstention from the University of Cats and from UT Arlington.
Abstain.
And an abstention from the University of Dogs, which is weird. All right, given that, the amendment to the motion passes. Applause, yay. And we have now changed cats to pit bulls. So we're moving back to the main motion now, which again, once you make the motion, please send the exact text to us so we'll know. But now I have a point of order for myself. Our parliamentarian, do I reopen it to discussion on the main motion? Is that right?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, perfect. So now we will reopen it to discussion. Discussion is on the motion to make pit bulls the official mascot of the AIS. Is there any discussion? All righty. Seeing and hearing none, the question is on the motion to make pit bulls the official mascot of the AIAS. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Aye.
Aye.
This is my favorite part, sitting here with all of you. All right, all those opposed, please say nay.
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 And are there any abstentions?
Abstain.
Abstain.
I see abstentions from the University of Cats and from UT Arlington. All right, seeing and hearing no more abstentions, the motion passes. And the official mascot of the AIS is now pit bulls. Yay, and we applaud. Okay, so I hope that y'all feel a little better after that. I know it's chaotic and a little hard to follow. And I will just in case, go back to this little graphic if you'd like to take a picture of it. And so again, if you do have questions or if you get confused or anything, I believe that you can ask questions at any point in COP. I don't see an issue with that, but hopefully we don't have to do that too much because again, we don't have a lot of time. And so, yes, our Vice President.
Thanks, Scott. I just wanted to make a quick note in case it happens. If there are, I just want you to know why there might be a pause if we're voting and there are some abstentions. That changes what our quorum is for a vote to pass. So say we have like 60 chapters in good standing present, but only 50 of them are saying yay or nay, aye or nay, and 10 of them abstain. That will change what the majority number is. So if you see me tomorrow being like, hey, Scott, we need to take a pause for a second before you announce what has passed. That's why. So some context for you all.
Thank you very much for that context. So that said, don't abstain lightly, but it is your right to abstain if you'd like to. All right, so we're going to move on to a quick review of the agenda for tomorrow and for Sunday.
Chat.
Apologies, I closed the chat. The chair recognizes the university from BGSU for a question.
I was wondering what happens if there's a tie?
That's a great question, Ms. Parliamentarian.
I would have never been in that situation. I believe that the chair would break the tie, but I need to consult the book.
Yes, we will. We will consult the book. I just feel that's correct, but there's never been a tie before that I know of, so I don't think it should be an issue. But thank you for the question. Question from Julia Ander. Go ahead.
Hi. When you make an amendment to something, or if you're proposing an amendment to something, do you have to put in the chat the name and amendment like you would with like question or comment?
Yes, that would be. Sorry, no, actually, you can say just comment, and then once you're talking, you can say, I move to amend this motion in such a way. But once you have the wording of the amendment in your mind, which I would suggest writing that out before you even ask to make a comment, do send the wording of the amendment to Shannon. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Any other, oh yeah, Lauren, question.
Hi, sorry, I have my camera off right now because it kept kicking me off of Zoom. So I'm on my phone right now, but what happens if tomorrow I get kicked off of Zoom for like a couple minutes and I come back and it's, we're in the middle of saying aye or nay or something like that?
Yes, that is a good question and a real possibility. If you get kicked off and you come back in the middle of a vote, I would suggest abstaining just because you're not sure what has happened and we can't really just go back out of voting. So yeah, you're at liberty to abstain in that if that happens. And we will try to be forgiving of technical issues. If you're speaking or something and you get lost, don't worry about it too much, but a good question.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. West Quad Director, Alex Geisen.
Hello, how many amendments can you make to a motion?
A good question, and I think the answer is infinite. Nope, the answer is not infinite. Oh, Alex, tripping us up with good questions.
The original motion, I believe the answer is, can only be amended 3 times.
Lovely. And I can confirm that in the book, but we're going to go with that for now. 3 times, which makes sense because we don't want to spend an infinite amount of time on one motion. Let's see, Marcel, a question.
Good evening, everyone. I just wanted to ask concerning when the chair recognizes the delegate. Can you please clarify this information?
Yes, so if you have a comment or a question to make during a discussion, so you would send exactly what you sent, Holy Spirit University of Catholic question or comment, and I will say, the chair recognizes a delegate from the Holy Spirit University of Catholic, and then you're free to unmute and speak. Does that answer the question?
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much.
Of course. All right, are there any more questions before we go into a quick review of the agenda? Haley, is that a question?
Yes, I don't have an agenda and an appendix.
Yes, so like I said before, we did have some difficulty with emails bouncing back, and also if you haven't been a confirmed delegate up to now, then you haven't gotten the agenda yet, but we will send it again tonight in such a way that you will receive it. And if you don't have it by tomorrow morning, definitely email us and let us know. But I will share my screen right now to go over the agenda with all of you. Yes, you will get the info tonight. Okie doke, so let me stop sharing this really quick. Look at all your faces. I haven't seen you so far, but here you are, real people. And I will go Make sure I have the agenda open.
Some of your backgrounds are very fun.
I will say what I just wrote in the chat out loud, just since we have a second. Just wanted to confirm for everyone, a motion can only be amended 3 times before it must go to a vote. And you can amend an amendment, but you can only do that 1 time.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Ooh. Oh, I know what's happening. My apologies, everyone. I'm having issues with PDFs, which is cool. All right, so we'll go into the agenda and just very quickly go through it. And if you have questions about the agenda as we go through, please let me know. So we want this to be clear to everybody. And so this is for the Board of Directors meeting, or not the Board of Directors meeting, Grassroots COP meeting. So this is the Board of Directors.
Yes, this is the wrong file.
That's not right. Let's try again. Let's just open it in Chrome then. Okay. Okay, this is the real one. So COP will begin tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So please take a moment to convert that to your own time zone so you know what time you need to be there. Please arrive a few minutes early as well so that we can get started on time. That would be wonderful. It does take a minute to get through roll call and all those perfunctory things, so please be there early. So we'll get started with a call to order, roll call, and approval of agenda and minutes, like we talked about before, all of which we should breeze by super easy. And then we'll go into an officer address from Shannon and I on the state of the organization and our goals for the year. So that'll be a fun part to listen to. And then we'll go into the membership portion. So we'll hear about the membership numbers for this year and what we're projecting for next year. A quick membership month preview from our vice president, and then the report from the membership committee for this year. Number 4 is finance and operations. So we'll hear from the finance committee, a review of the FY21 fiscal year from our executive director and past vice president, as well as comments from our new vice president. Go over some tax ID and insurance information, which you'll need to know if you haven't seen it already. So that'll be very important. And then we'll have a Q&A with our interim executive director, Ashley Ash, and some staffing updates from the national office. And then we will hear lots of reports from lots of committees. The standing committees will go first, and then the special committees. So that is a little bit of a long part, just to sit there and listen to the reports, but they've all been doing amazing work. So please pay attention to all the things that they say. And that's a pretty easy day. We'll recess until Sunday at the same time, 11 a.m. Eastern. It will be on a different Zoom link. So if you have the agenda, or when you get the agenda, pay special attention. Right here is the Zoom links. So we will also send that in the email, but make sure you're on the correct one. So item number 7, which we'll start with on Sunday morning, is a call for interest to the 2021-2022 committees and task forces, which will be announced tomorrow night at the leadership Q&A. So I encourage all of you to go to the leadership Q&A, especially because you're already leaders and we want you to become even better leaders. But we will announce the committees there and send out the interest form. And number 8 is a discussion on associate membership, which is all about the associate membership portion of the AIS. We need to make some changes to that based on changes that the board of directors voted on last week. And then we'll go into a discussion on NOMA and their relationship to the AIS. We have an impending new liaison from NOMA, which is really, really exciting. So glad that we get to ratify that here. And then number 10 is a discussion about national and regional events, which there's some very important announcements going on there. So make sure you're there for that part too. And then we'll go into new business. We have one resolution from Auburn and Oklahoma State University. So we'll hear from them and vote on that resolution, which is also very exciting, and is attached in the appendix if you'd like to look it over before the meeting. And then we'll go into town hall, which again is for open discussion. No motions will be made there. But if you do have things that you'd like to discuss in town hall, email me ASAP. So definitely get back with your chapters as well and see if there's anything your members want us to discuss. It's not just you, you're representing your chapters, so be sure to ask them. And then that's it, and we'll adjourn. So that's really a quick rundown of the table of contents for COP. But are there any questions on that or on anything we've discussed so far? This is the question part of the meeting before we wrap up. So let's take questions, and I'll pay attention to the chat. Please, future Vice President Franza.
Thank you. I want to be Northeast Quad Director for a few more minutes. Thank you. I have a question. What happens if my computer is having issues and I suddenly log on late because I couldn't get in and I miss roll call? What do I do? Do I talk to someone? Do I message someone? I know the answer.
You should probably just leave. No, I'm kidding. Don't leave. You should message our Vice President, who at the time will be Shannon DeFranza. Please just message her and let her know you're there. She will be recording who is at the meeting and making sure. So we do want to know you're there, even if you show up late. So you can just DM her. Try very, very hard not to be late. It's very important. But if something goes terribly wrong, that is what you should do. Good question. Any more questions or comments? Okie dokie. Well, are there any other comments from our parliamentarian or our future Vice President?
No, none from me, but thank you for the opportunity.
Always.
Same
Okay,
here.
well.
Very excited.
Yes, very excited. Me too. I hope you're all excited. It's going to be a fun time. I think COP is really fun. So I'll stick around on this meeting for a while. If you want to stay and ask a question with less people around, that's okay. But we are going to release you right now. Future Midwest Quad Director Bailey Knoll did just send some Slack links. If you're not in your region Slack, please click on those and go ahead and join. They're very important for communication. But other than that, you're all free to go. Thank you so much for coming. Oh, wait.
Sorry.
Shannon?
A couple people have told me that an email or two about COP accidentally went to their spam folder. So please check those tonight. We'll be sending out messages tonight, well, a singular email tonight with all of the final information. But if for some reason your inbox has sent it to spam, just please check that first before you email us, but you can email us if you have any issues.
Yes, thank you. And with that, we'll release you. Thank you all for coming. Can't wait to see you at inauguration, which starts at 6 Eastern. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey, Scott, I have a quick question.